1 in 8 Europeans currently live in areas prone to river flooding. This year alone, there have been 4 major flood events that have claimed over 330 lives. While writing the script for this video, I thought about focusing on climate change and what caused these floods. However, it became clear that what these communities need is awareness, especially the small cities, towns, and neighborhoods that are not touristy or historically known places. So many people have lost it all, families were left homeless, and communities will take months and even years to recover. Of course, climate change is the biggest reason why floods are more and more often in the world. The European climate is changing rapidly, with massive heat waves and severe rainfall becoming the norm. In 2021, Europe experienced the deadliest and biggest flood in more than 3 decades. From July 12th to 14th, 2021, heavy rain poured over Europe and created floods that affected these areas. Yet, regarding floods, 2024 has been the deadliest year in Europe this century, with the recent floods in Spain reminiscing the 2021 European floods. The first major flood this year mostly affected Germany. In June 2024, southern Germany was hit with floods that took 9 lives. The German states of Baden-Württemberg and Bavaria were the ones hit the hardest, but the floods expanded to neighboring areas in Germany and other countries as well. According to the German Meteorological Service, some areas recorded more than a month's worth of rain within 24 hours between May 31st and June 1st. By June 3rd, a state of emergency was declared in several cities in southern Germany, and many rivers in the region had reached the highest warning level due to rising water levels. This was the third flood event to hit Germany in 2024, an occurrence that many Germans have to experience year after year. In Italy, 3 friends that were casually walking by the Natisone River lost their lives after water levels suddenly raised. This is a reminder of how fast and unexpected a river can flood nearby areas, even if water levels seem normal at first. Other countries that also experienced floods include Austria, France, and even Belgium and the Netherlands. Yet, the worst months this year by far have been September and October. In mid-September, heavy rains flooded most of Central Europe. As Storm Boris ravaged Europe, its historic heavy rainfall caused floods that spread throughout the continent and recorded 29 fatalities. The flooding started in Austria and the Czech Republic. In Austria, Lower Austria was the most affected region, yet Vienna, the capital, was practically unharmed, mostly due to the government establishing flood-preventing measures in the last decades, like a diversion to the mighty Danube River that flows through the city. Nevertheless, cities such as Boheim-Kirchen and St. Pölten were nowhere as lucky, and unfortunately tend to receive much less coverage and attention. In the Czech Republic, over 200 rivers were reported to have spilled over their banks. In some areas of Silesia and northern Moravia, especially in the region of the Jenisej Mountains, people had to be evacuated. Litovel, Ostrava, Bohumín, and Jasanik are some of the cities that were flooded and where houses were left with no electricity or running water. Storm Boris also passed through southwestern Poland, where half a year worth of rain poured over the region in only 3 days. The Opol Voivodeship and Lower Silesia provinces reported 10 people dead, with thousands displaced and left without electricity. Cities and towns along the Czech-Polish border were flooded as flood barriers were overcome due to the heavy amounts of rain. These included towns from Jelenia Góra to Brodnik. Poland's prime minister lack of worry ahead of Storm Boris shows how unexpectedly powerful the storm was and how hard it was to prepare for it. There were partial floods in neighborhoods around Wrocław, plus 90% of the town of Lewin Brzegi was covered in water. Most cities and towns along the Oder River and its tributaries suffered some flooding. Western Slovakia and the Little Carpathians had its own share of floods. The town of Hořnik, Jablonica, Stupava, and Devinska Nova Ves were flooded. Bratislava, the Slovak capital, also suffered some floods that disrupted transportation services and damaged infrastructure. In Romania, 7 people were reported dead due to floods from Storm Boris. In the eastern counties of Galati and Vaslui, people were displaced, key infrastructure damaged, and entire villages submerged. Among these villages are Subotica, Konaki, Kudalbi, Pecchia, Costagnegri, Gravita, and Piscu. In Italy, the Tuscany, Veneto, Emilia-Romagna regions suffered major floods, where several people lost their lives. Near Pisa, a grandmother and a 5-month-old baby were swept away and are still missing. Whereas in Romagna, more than 1,000 people were evacuated due to the danger the floods posed. In Croatia, Serbia, and Hungary, water levels rose in major rivers and flood warnings were in place. But thankfully, no casualties were reported. Early in October, Bosnia and Herzegovina experienced its worst floods since 2014 due to an atmospheric river. An atmospheric river is a long, narrow region, often compared to a river but in the sky, that carry great amounts of water vapor that later precipitates. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, this resulted in torrential rain on October 3rd and 4th, mainly in the Herzegovina, Neretva, and central Bosnia cantons. The following municipalities saw the worst floods: Jablanica, Konjic, Kisiljak, Kresevo, and Fojnica. In total, 27 people lost their lives after the water settled, with 19 deaths being reported in Jablanica alone. The extreme weather triggered flash floods that turned into devastating landslides. In several locations, the landslides moved boulders weighing over 10 tons that crushed homes and damaged property. An estimated 1,133 households across the two cantons were affected, with many families losing essential property and assets. Given that the country saw almost no rain during summer, scientists suggest that this exacerbated the floods. In neighboring Croatia and Montenegro, minor to moderate floods were reported too. In late October, eastern Spain was ravaged by torrential rain that resulted in floods which became one of Spain's deadliest natural disasters. Many people have heard about Spanish cities being destroyed by floods on the night of October 29th. Overall, 223 people were reported dead. 93 people are still missing, and billions of euros in total damage has been estimated. Even though the rain affected the Andalusia and Castilla-La Mancha regions, the biggest damage was seen in the Valencian Community region. It is not possible to convey the destruction and despair that people in Valencia must be experiencing, so my prayers go to them. Most of the area around Valencia received record rainfall in such a sudden manner that they were not able to evacuate. Furthermore, there was no emergency alert to the residents of these areas, which in the morning of October 30th would see their houses and businesses completely flooded. Cars stockpiled in the streets, and many people would, understandably, see their lives change completely. It is clear that climate change created a gigantic storm that was too much for the riverbanks of the Turia and Magra rivers to handle. Predicting or avoiding the heavy rainfall that hit eastern Spain is an impossible task given the issue of global warming. However, and what many Spanish people complain about, it is possible to alert residents of such areas of what is coming. This is something the Spanish and Valencian government failed to do, and most likely led to many more deaths that could have been avoided. Most residents of the heavily flooded areas received an emergency alert explaining the severity of the storm way too late. At that point, they were already battling with over a meter of water and some being dragged around by the waters. If you think that that was the only blunder by the authorities, well, you will be wrong. The feeling that the tragedy was not as bad as it was started with Carlos Mazón, the Valencian community president, stating that the storm would dissipate in a matter of hours. This continued as the emergency services had no rush on reaching the affected areas, and the Spanish government did not send the adequate amount of personnel to help towns such as Chiva, Paiporta, Catarroja, and El Tremolar. These towns were among the most affected, and emergency services took days to reach them. The discontent was so palpable that while the Spanish royals and the country's prime minister, Pedro Sanchez, were visiting the area, Many residents threw mud at them and called them killers. From the images, reconstruction of eastern Spain will take several months, but some people have lost everything, and getting back up will be a very hard task. And because when it rains, it pours, there is another storm expected to hit Spain in the coming days. Although it is not supposed to directly hit Valencia, the defenses in the area have already been damaged enough. Hopefully, this new storm does not create more floods or loss of human lives. Let's all hope for the best and send our prayers to all the communities I talked about in this video. Consider subscribing, leaving a like, and commenting your best wishes. God bless and have a great day.